I worry about AI over usage to where a student does not develop their human skills they need, whether that's from writing to drawing and especially to thinking. That's what I worry about. So I would actually say, I'm going to put a pin on this right now. In terms of AI and students, it's about them getting a good foundation and grounding in the ethics behind it, and also as adults, keeping in mind, children need to develop their skills, their thinking skills, and other tangible skills, and hopefully AI will not hinder that.
You're listening to the smartsocial.com podcast, your trusted source for real-world tactics that keep students safe and help them to shine online. I'm your host, Josh Ochs. Each week, I sit down with K-12 superintendents, district leaders, and community voices who are shaping digital safety. We discuss wins, struggles, and strategies used to guide students so they can be safe and successful online.
Hello, I'm Torrance Lewis. I'm the assistant superintendent of the Lincoln Public Schools, located in Lincoln, Massachusetts, which is right outside Boston. In our district, we have about 1,000 students on 2 different campuses. What's also unique about our district is that we are the school district that runs the school on the Hanscom Air Force Base. So we have a Lincoln-based, town-based school, and also one on the Hanscom Air Force Base as well.
Torrance, it's so great to have you here today. Thanks for joining us. I'm excited. We're going to talk a little bit about AI today, some safety. We're going to dive into how we can talk to parents about engaging their kids early. Preparation is one of your things you like to talk about. We're going to listen to some tips and tactics from you there. I'm pumped today. Hello to our amazing audience. Whether you're listening or watching, whether you're a superintendent or you are an amazing parent or guardian or the staff in between who are supporting kiddos, we're all about keeping kids safe and also successful, preparing them for their future. There's no shame on today's call. We're going to have ideas and thoughts and stuff. If you already gave your kids cell phones, that's totally fine. We're going to make sure we keep them safe along the way. Okay, Torrance, so privileged. After 275 or so of these district leader conversations in 43 plus states, we've heard some consistent trends, and I come to you humbly with these trends to say, please lead us in the right direction. I'm hearing from your peers all over the country. Josh, there's student mental health crisis, anxiety, depression, suicidal ideation. There's cyberbullying, Josh. There's harassment, threats, and social exclusion via platforms. Josh, there's sleep deprivation and chronic absenteeism driven by this late night screen time addiction, which impacts grades and student learning. Then we've got social media addiction and compulsive phone use disrupting instruction. 3 and 4 are very much cousins tied to each other. There's the fear of missing out, FOMO, which causes anxiety, social comparison, and disengagement. I know adults, I know I've felt FOMO before. Viral trends, challenges, and dangerous content spread through TikTok and Snapchat. Then there's financial and resource strain on districts as they have to hire more counselors, security, and legal costs with all this stuff. Then there's student self-esteem from body image issues, eating disorders, and self-harm content on Instagram and TikTok. And then there's parent disengagement. Some parents say, it's not my kid. I won't come to the parent night event. And the home screen, sometimes that screen time goes unaddressed or unmonitored. And again, there's no shame here. But here's what we're hearing nationwide. What have you seen a little bit of in your neck of the woods?
All of this, all these issues will come up in our neck of the woods. And I think what's missing is not thinking about children and young adolescents and older adolescents in their developmental stage. I think what we're not doing is we're looking at the outside influences and not thinking about how can we help students in general to withstand different societal issues that emerge. That's how I look at things. I can talk more about that, going forward.
Yeah, can you dive in? I want to double click on that question. And can you dive in and tell me a little bit more about that?
So, I think what I see a lot of times is people will it's a both and approach. There are issues out there, but people will catastrophize things and bring it to a high level when actually we're dealing with young humans that have been the same for hundreds of years. And so whether it's AI, social media, or cyberbullying, whatever else, those are just a new manifestations of different societal things that kids are dealing with. So when I look at, for example, people talk about social media. And what I look at is that 11-year-old needs parent direction, parent guidance. It's not about putting some controls in place on the outside. It's about knowing what 11-year-old needs. And that's what we're missing as a society, is thinking about the children at every single stage from age 10 up through 18, what do they need at that certain age? It's a point of like gradual release of independence as they get older, but also making sure that they don't go from like a really controlled environment to like total freedom. At the age of 12, you don't have that kind of capacity to understand and handle that kind of independence. That's why they need the parents to lean in and be involved in a developmentally appropriate level for that age group.
Oh my gosh, that was such a simple answer and so brilliant, because these are the outcomes of maybe telling kids, here's the keys to the car, just go drive it with no training in a way, right? Giving an 11 or 12-year-old total access to social media. I like that. What do they need? I even wrote that down, knowing what kids need at different ages.
That's exactly it. Now you got me going. So like one thing I can say is that always when I talk to parents, I've been a principal before, I've been an assistant principal, I've been a teacher for almost a decade and a half, is that we have this idea in our society that kids should be like jumping over a canyon in terms of development, or they're going to hit a series of brick walls, when it shouldn't really be like that. It should be like locks in a canal, where kids are gradually getting more responsibility, facing more challenges, but it's a slight increase, and they don't even know that they're gaining more skills as they're getting older. We had this idea like all of a sudden like a child's 10 and they'll be like, oh, you're 11 now, so here's your phone, here's your freedom, I'm not going to check in on you. And it's not supposed to be that way. And one thing that I always use with parents, I say like leaning in, but it's going to look different when your child is 13 versus when your child is 7. And I'll explain this more. So one term out there, I didn't make this up, I'm not going to take credit for it, it's called potted plant parenting. And potted parenting is when you're around, but you're not in your child's face. And how this kind of plays out in a school, when your child is 6 or 7 years old, they don't mind a parent coming in to do some kind of celebration, whatever else. If you came into the class when your child's 12, they'd be horrified. However, your child would like it if you're around the school, volunteering in the library, you're at an event, you're kind of nearby, but you're not right there next to them. That gives them comfort. So that's how we also approach other things as well when we're dealing with young adolescents and adolescents as well. They want us around. They want us to be involved. This not making sure the tether is not too tight is what we need for the different age groups.
Yeah, I love that. That's great. What a great phrase. Okay, I want to put you on the hot seat, ask you some questions. What do you think are some of the mental health and behavioral challenges these days teens face due to excessive screen time and social media use?
Oh, wow. Okay, so there's a lot of them. Again, I'm going to approach it from a deficit kind of way, but also an asset kind of way. How can I can't say it's a problem without talking about a solution as well. So I think the deficit part, the hard part is you hear about algorithms in terms of screen time and social media. And that's an area in a science that a lot of people don't know about, or how it really affects in terms of neuroscience and what's been manipulated. And so when you, as a parent, you may be on top of things where you allow your child some screen time, but it can be like a deep algorithm there. Again, I made up that term, where the child's being influenced in a way that's even more impactful than that 20 minutes they're on the screen time. And that's something that I think we should be very cautious of as a society, as a government, about what are these algorithms doing for our young people. In terms of the challenges, because of all this bombardment from social media, kids are dealing with things that a generation ago were more tangible. Like you can see down the street, hey, there's a group of kids who may not like me, I'm going to walk away from them. Or I'm not going to go to this event, I don't feel comfortable. Where now you can be drawn into something whether you want to or not. Your name can be included because of all the technology and the digital life we lead. How do you escape from that? This is where starting early, parents and school personnel having regulations, having rules around student use of screen time and social media. So I say early because, in a way, if you give your child a phone too early, for example, you can always correct course, but it makes it that much difficult when they start going down a rabbit hole of challenges when by the time they're 14. So you have to kind of go back in time to kind of correct that, course correct. So that's the challenge right there. Our kids are being exposed to things that we don't even know they're being exposed to, and that's not helping them mentally.
Okay, next question I've got for you. What concerns you most about how students are being influenced by creators or online trends right now?
I think what concerns me is I'm going to go back to my root in all this is thinking about child and young adolescent development. We think about, I think in society, we know what adults need, young adults, older adults, we know what kids need. We still have not figured out adolescents purely, especially young adolescents. And I say this because, again, we're a very either or society. We think we know a child goes to a certain point, age 9, and all of a sudden they're going to be like a magical 17-year-old. You know what I'm saying? And we don't think about, there's 8 years in between of the development, and then kids are going through humans do their most rapid development outside of toddlerhood when they're a young adolescent, and we forget about that. So with that, the brains, their bones are growing, their bones are hardening, their brains are developing, the brains are not fully developed yet, and so that's very, very influential on a child and a young adolescent. So that's what concerns me, is that it's not just about like, don't do this and do this. It's like they're getting infiltrated with these influences that are almost exponentially worse than looking at it when you're 30 years old. That's what really concerns me. And it's all new, so we don't know how it's going to play out when they're in their 20s and 30s and 40s and beyond, how it's going to affect our society. And there's a societal component to this, where if this influence of that young humans are receiving as children, young adolescents, how's it going to play out when they're developing relationships in their 20s, when they want to build a family in their 30s, when they want to get a job in their 20s and 30s and 40s? How's that affecting all that? And that can be something that's some damaging happening when they're like 15 years old, that's going to have repercussions all the way into their adulthood. And that's what really concerns me a lot.
Great way to define it. I like that. To our amazing audience members, you know that we host weekly parent engagement evening events to bring you up to speed on the latest dangers and threats. Now, parents last week asked this important question. I want to bring it up to everybody. Josh, what advice would you give a student to help them recognize some of the red flags of a dangerous stranger online? Let's hear from two teenagers how they might help a friend recognize these red flags.
When someone asks to change the conversation to another app, it often means that they want more access to you and they want to get closer to you. So they want to escalate the relationship or the connection. I think that's a warning sign when they do it too fast. They're not considerate or checking in on where you're comfortable. You guys are already communicating well on one platform. What is the reasoning to move to another platform? If I had a friend talking online to a stranger, I would advise against it. Some red flags that I would have to advise them to cut it off with this person or to stop engaging would be if the person starts to get very involved in their personal life and they seem to be very intrigued in what's going on with them and wanting to know all the little details about what they do and who they are. If they're very persistent and constantly wanting to talk to my friend or wanting to speak to them, I feel like that's kind of a red flag. Another thing would be if they ask them to ever meet them anywhere in person right from the start, if they feel a sense of being uncomfortable, or if my intuition is saying something feels wrong with this, then I think that's a major red flag.
A major red flag. Parents, remember, we have these free weekly online live events and prizes for the whole family. You're going to notice that there's real teens teaching parts of the program, like you just saw. Please bring your teens out if you like. About 55% of parents are bringing their teens, and they say, you know what, my teens didn't roll their eyes. They actually enjoyed listening to the other teenagers. So we hope you'll do that as well. And there's amazing conversation starters to keep your family connected. In addition, if you're ever struggling, we're here to keep your kids safe and successful online. So we have the very best parent app guides made by parents for parents on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, Snapchat, Fortnite, Minecraft, Roblox, Netflix, WhatsApp, and 450 more. We have them on Claude, ChatGPT, Gemini, you name it. We've got the app because I've got an incredible, the world's best army of parents nationwide fighting for you. They do the research in communities just like yours. Also, we've got these evening events every single week. So whether you're raising kids in a video game world and you want to just ask questions, learn from parents, the very best 60-minute program with panelists. The impact of screen time on motivation, AI for student success. We've got one in Espanol dedicated, how social media is influencing teen behavior. We have live online session 1, 2. We've also got a live session 3. So if you miss one, you get the translations, the replay, or another live one to join as well. We've got all kinds of stuff. And we've got the latest threats that put us on the news. We're here to protect you. We've also got replays of everything. Again, multiple languages. and we've got it in bite-sized nuggets. We're here for you here at Smart Social, and we hope that you'll join the next event. Okay, to my amazing guest, I want to dive into AI. How do you see AI helping schools and students if it's used in the right way, and what guardrails are most important to put in place to keep our students safe and successful online?
How I see it, there's the child piece, and that breaks up into two parts: the ethical part and knowing how to deal with AI, and also possible usage. There's a teacher part, which is how to use it in schools, and also how to be the guardian angel and the teacher of ethics for kids. And there's the parents who are there to prepare their kids for how to use AI. And so when I see AI helping schools and students, I actually get a little, my antenna goes up a little bit, because I feel like we have, it's different, but in similar ways, we've been down this road before about a decade and a half ago, when social media started kind of bubbling up. And what I'm trying to say here, there's a pattern here that, it's important as a society, and when we're working with young adolescents and children, to not think of look at everything that's coming up like a new major mountain. It's always going to be these roadblocks coming up, and how do we deal with them? That's why I always kind of go from the idea of preparing students, not protecting students. Preparing them also protects them as well. And so when I see helping schools and students, I'm like, what do you mean by that? Because I've seen, being an educator since 2000, I was there when many folks went so far down and so quickly down a technology road, and now they realize a lot of ways, what have we done? And that's why you're seeing a lot of potential rollbacks about kids on screens too much in schools. Kids don't write as much as what they used to. They're and I've seen as a teacher, I was a teacher for almost a decade and a half, where towards the end of my career, I saw kids who, for example, didn't want to draw anymore because they felt like they would say, I'm not a good drawer, because they're so used to getting a printout. And to me, that was flabbergasting. I never had that issue most of my teaching career, where kids would rather be aside on a screen than go out to recess. So I'm saying that in that context because I look at it as that we have to be careful with AI in terms of schools and students. And it's more about society's gonna keep evolving, but what's our root? What's our North Star in helping kids? Whether it's AI or not, what are we doing to help kids to learn? And how I see AI in terms of helping schools and students, before you have students use it, you have to have a good grounding in digital literacy and digital ethics and I even go beyond human ethics about what it means to something to be fake, and for something to be doing something for you when you can actually do it yourself. I worry about AI over usage to where a student does not develop their human skills they need, whether that's from writing to drawing and especially to thinking. That's what I worry about. So I would actually say, I'm going to put a pin on this right now. In terms of AI and students, it's about them getting a good foundation and grounding in the ethics behind it, and also as adults, keeping in mind children need to develop their skills, their thinking skills, and other tangible skills, and hopefully AI will not hinder that. In terms of teachers, I think we always talk about. I think it's pretty obvious. And actually, you showed me here with the whisper flow how it can make your job more efficient. You know what I'm saying? That's, the bill, I think about as a teacher, but especially as a principal. If I had it even a few years ago, I was a principal, I had the whisper flow to do my emails, my parent emails, that would have saved so much time and things like that. So I imagine as a teacher as well, if you need to differentiate, for example, AI can be very helpful with that, kind of to make something quickly for you that, it's not really taking what you're thinking, because you're still the human giving the inputs. But also it's basically having an in-house secretary for you to kind of type it up and make it for you, whatever else. That's very useful. That's hard. That's very obvious for teachers. The other side for teachers is, because you can't, when you're working with kids or any human beings, you can't predict everything. You have to have those King Solomon moments where you have to kind of be able to think on your feet and know how to kind of pivot when needed. And what I mean is that you have to have it where teachers have a good grounding in how to teach the ethics of AI and technology to kids and be able for different situations where things come up. If a child's like has quote unquote cheated using AI, how's the teacher going to deal with that? They can't always wait like, hey, we're going to go to this seminar or the principal's going to come talk to you in a week. It has to be in that real time how to deal with that. Or if a child needs help on the interpreting what is AI and what is real, we have teachers and other school personnel really versed on how to help kids decipher what's real, what's not, and how AI can be ethical and unethical. That's really important in terms of teachers. And in parents, I think the idea is to not be cavalier about things. You're not going to be able to predict all the different pitfalls your child may go against in society. But as a parent, your child is still a 14-year-old. So you approach it from a developmental standpoint, like my 14-year-old should not really be exposed to this or have this new tool, whatever else. They're not old enough yet. If you approach it from a developmental standpoint, and this is where schools can help guide parents about young adolescents and things like that, that's going to help parents navigate things, because you'll get things like nowadays, I think you said it in one of your points on the slide, it's easier for a parent if y'all like what they see is like, oh, not my kid, not my child. And my thing is that, like, is your child human? Yes. Then it could be your child. It's, children are capable of telling, doing a lot of beautiful things. And children are beautiful. And they're also capable of being, of not telling the truth and things like that since they're toddlers. So no one is immune to being influenced by different societal challenges. And I think when parents don't see that, that's where things like, oh, they'll be fine. It's like, no, that child, they're 14. So maybe they should not have their, they need a flip phone, not a smartphone. You know what I'm saying? That's how I would approach it.
I love it. Excellent points. I wrote a few things down. I love that. Final question I have for you. When you talk with parents and teachers in your community, what do you think is the hardest thing for families to keep up with? There's so many things, but out of this list, or maybe I'm missing something, is it the changes in social media that happen every week, the new AI tools that seem to pop up every day, or the overall screen habits and screen time addiction that seems to be growing on us that we're now seeing?
I think it's all of this, and I'm gonna find a common thread. I'll give you like basically foundational answers going to address those 3 points right there. Mm-hmm. I think what's hard for families is, and this is even before, I'm gonna do a parallel here, like free play, the idea of like more free range kids, to where you probably have heard like how nowadays things are about play dates, kids are overscheduled, whatever else, and you may be that parent where you want your child to go outside and play, and go be in the neighborhood roaming around. But if you're the only family doing that, your children are not gonna have anyone to play with, and people might look at you like, "What's wrong with you?" So like, even though you might be doing the right thing for human development, if your community society is not with you, how can you really make that difference? And you don't want to make your child to be like socially ostracized because they're so different from what's the norm. So you have to go against fight that. So I'm saying this because I feel like if a family wants to kind of like have more rules and regulations, they kind of done the literature, they realize, a 12-year-old shouldn't have this, but their 12-year-old friends all have the latest smartphones since they're 10. How do you handle that? How do you deal with that? That's the hardest thing, I think, for families to deal with or keep up with. And that affects social media changes, new AI tools, and on the screen habits, because you're trying to keep up with your child's emerging development, and you deal with a young human, but also have to deal with the community that you're in. So how do you do that? And I think in some parents, you want to have an asset mindset, like it's going to be okay. My child's going to be okay, and it will. I think I'm a very optimistic type thinker, and so but that can lend itself to being laissez-faire, where if you're not leaning in, you're not being that potted plant parent, your child may start going down a rabbit hole of social media, being drawn in, and they'll get radicalized on YouTube under your watch. Yeah. And there's different things where by keeping up, you can't possibly keep up. Like you didn't see it when you were going over those different apps. I chuckled. I'm like, you named all these apps, and you said over 450 apps. I'm like, oh my gosh, I was like, our society has gotten out of hand with all these apps. So you can't possibly keep up with all of them, but you can keep up with your child. And what I mean by that, it's out there. Like, there's things that if your children have the phone, they have to give it to the parent by like 8 p.m. So it's in the parent's room. So the children are never in their own bedroom with their phone by themselves. Their laptop computers are always working on in the living room around parents. Those kind of things, they may seem small, but they're huge, because when the children, they go down these rabbit holes and everything when they're by themselves in their room on their smartphone talking to a stranger or whatever else. And that doesn't have to happen. If you have a rule like, okay, it's a both and approach. I'm not going to be that weird parent where you don't have a phone until you're 19 years old. You have your phone at age 15 or 16. However, you're going to get yours at 8 a.m. and you're going to turn it in at 7 p.m. And when you do your homework, you're working in a living room or the desk or office right there, and they have control over that. And there's also many tools out there where parents can see, like I was kids in our district where parents know everything their children are texting. They know the interactions and things like that, because who owns the phones? The parents own the phones. Your children aren't working a full-time job paying for it. So therefore you have more agency on over a child's access to things. And to address this part, because it comes up where parents are, sometimes they give in because they're afraid of being the bad guy. What they don't understand about young adolescents and adults in general, they want the boundaries. Part of the development is the boundaries of going against the different walls. They may put up a fuss, whatever else. That's part of it. That's the natural part of development. If a child's all compliant and perfect, I'd be worried. They're supposed to have boundaries to go up against. And so it's important for the parent to not give in. And the kid actually appreciates those boundaries because they can tell their friends, hey, I can't talk to you after 7 p.m. because my parent says I can't. That relieves the stress from the child. And if you don't, how children learn how to be adults is that it is a trial and error. I'm going to try this. I hit the boundary. I didn't get far, so I learned my lesson right there. If you just open the gates up, they don't ever have the guardrail and boundaries to direct themselves better as they get adults. And I say that because people sometimes become laissez-faire because they think the other option is to be like totally draconian, where you're like oppressive, like it's like 1920 or something like that. Like, no, we're not saying that. We're just saying, like, you just know your child's developmental level and making sure they need boundaries when they're adolescents. They should not just be, they're minors for a reason, and I used to say as a principal, I say to the teachers, is that when you work in a school from like 8 a.m. to 3 p.m., what rules the land is in loco parentis, in place of parent, that whole theme, that Latin phrase. So when the kids are in our schools, we're their parents while they're under our care. And so you have to take that idea from schools and also the parents, like, they're under your care. So it's your job to guide them. They're gonna have some trial and errors. They may trip and fall, and you're there to pick them up and keep them going, and while also gradually letting them get more independence as they get older.
Yeah, so well said, sir. You took a lot of time out of your busy day to join us here. Thank you so much for being with us.
All right. Thank you. Thank you so much. It was great to be here.
Yeah, it was awesome. To all of our audience members, thanks for joining us as we keep your kids safe and successful online. Parents, one last thing from smartsocial.com. We're here to support you in all that you do. Remember, no matter what you post online, to try and keep it light, bright, and polite, because your kids are modeling the behavior they see you do online. I'm Josh Ochs, the founder of smartsocial.com. We'll see you at our next free evening event all year long. Have a great day. See you on the next episode. Thanks for spending time with the smartsocial.com podcast. If today's insights were useful, please share the episode with a fellow parent or educator and subscribe so you never miss our next conversation. And parents, make sure to join one of our next live online events each week to keep your family safe and also enter for a chance to win cool prizes. You can learn more at smartsocial.com. I'm your host, Josh Ochs, and parents, remember to keep it light, bright, and polite, because your kids are watching what you're doing online. I'll see you on the next episode. Have a great rest of the day.